Hello, this is the luckiest maths teacher in the world. Thank you so much for tuning into this video in which we will look at the area of rectangles and parallelograms. So firstly, we just need to make sure we know what the two shapes are. So a parallelogram is a quadrilateral with two pairs of parallel sides or two pairs of equal opposite sides. So if you have a shape like this with two pairs of parallel sides, or I tell you that opposite sides are equal, you know that it's a parallelogram. Now, a rectangle is a special type of parallelogram that has all four angles equal. Because the angles in any quadrilateral add to 360, each of these must be 90 degrees. So the formula for each of these is slightly different. You probably already know the area of a rectangle is just length times width. Just multiply them together and you're done. What about for a parallelogram? Well, note, I can actually draw a triangle here where this is the perpendicular height, and I can move this triangle over here. So you can see that the area of the original parallelogram is the same as the area of this shape here. I've transformed the parallelogram into a rectangle. So what we're going to do is call this B, that's the base. It's the same as the original base of the parallelogram, and we'll call this here H. Now in measurement, whenever you see H, it always means perpendicular height, the height at 90 degrees. So the area of this black rectangle, which is the same as the area of the parallelogram, is just length times width, or B times H. So when we're finding the area of a parallelogram, you just have to make sure you're using the perpendicular height, not the slant height. Let's look at some examples. So here I have a parallelogram. I know this because I have two pairs of parallel sides. So it's not a rectangle because it doesn't have 90-degree angles. So the area of a parallelogram is simply base times perpendicular height. So multiply them together and the area is in units squared, 120 meters squared. Let's find the area of this square here. A square is a type of rectangle, so we can just go length times width. The area of this square is just 1 times 1, which is 1 meter squared. But note that 1 meter is 100 centimeters. So this square also has area 100 centimeters by 100 centimeters. 100 times 100 is 10,000. So even though there are 100 centimeters in a meter, there are 10,000 or 100 square centimeters in a meter squared. So when you're converting square units, you need to square the conversion factors. So what I mean by this is if I square each of these and look at converting square units, I have to square these conversion factors, which are the green and yellow numbers. So, for example, we know that there are 10 millimeters in a centimeter, but there are 10 squared, 100 millimeters squared in a centimeter squared. So you can use this chart to convert. Just remember, if you're going from a smaller to larger unit, you divide because there's fewer of the larger unit, and the other way you times. Larger to smaller you times because there's more of the smaller unit. So when we're considering square units, I also want to make you aware of this hectare, HA. A hectare is 100 meter by 100 meter squared. So 100 times 100 is 10,000. So if I want to go from meters squared to hectares, I need to divide by 10,000. Remember, smaller to larger unit you divide, and larger to smaller you times. So hectare is much bigger than a meter squared. But 100 meters is 1/10 or 0.1 kilometers. So a hectare is 0.1 times 0.1, it is 0.01 or 1/100th of a kilometer squared. That means there are 100 hectares in a kilometer squared. So to go this way, smaller to larger, you divide, and if you want to go from a larger to a smaller unit, you times. A kilometre squared is much bigger than a hectare. So 3.2 centimetres squared, if I want to convert this, looking at the chart, I start at centimetres squared. To go to millimetres squared, I times by 10 squared. 3.2 times 10 squared is 320. If I want to convert meters squared to kilometers squared, start here, go here, I divide by 1,000 squared. So you put in your calculator 200,000 divided by 1,000 squared, you get 0.2. A kilometer squared is actually massive. If I have 280 hectares to go to kilometers squared, hectares to kilometers squared, I simply divide by 100. All right, let's now look at some harder questions. So we're going to start by finding the area of this square here using Pythagoras. So I'm going to call the side length of this square S. I can't find the area of a square without knowing its side length. So using Pythagoras, shorter side squared plus shorter side squared equals longer side squared. So S squared plus S squared is just 2S squared. 30 squared is 900. So now I'm going to divide by 2 and I get 450. But the area of this square is S squared. It's just S times S. I found that S times S is 450. So that means the area of this square must be 450. And when we're finding area, it's always in units squared. So 450 centimeters squared. All right, let's look at this one. The length of a rectangle, 4 centimeters more than the width. Perimeter 52, we're going to calculate its area. So you can't calculate the area of a rectangle unless you know the length and the width. So what we need to do is first find the length and the width. So I'm going to start by letting x equal one of the things I'm trying to find. So I'll let x be the width. Now, if the length is 4 centimeters more, then the length is x plus 4. Note that I need to use the same pronumeral to define both variables. I don't know how to solve equations that have more than one variable. So now we're going to set up an equation. We're told the perimeter is 52. The perimeter is 2 times the width plus 2 times the length. So when I multiply this by 2, I'm going to multiply x by 2 and also 4 by 2. So I get this is equal to 52. So collecting like terms, 2x plus 2x is 4x. Subtracting 8 from both sides, I get 44. Divide by 4, I get x equals 11. So what I've just found is the width here is 11 and it's centimeters because the measurements in the question were in centimeters. So the width is 11, the length is 15. So now it's very easy to find the area. It's just length times width. You can use your calculator if you need, 165 centimeters squared. All right, let's check this one. Area of a rectangle is 108. The length is triple the width. Calculate its dimensions. So we're going to solve this similarly to what we just did. So we're going to, again, let x be the width. Now, this time I'm told the length is 3 times as big. So the length is going to be 3x. Once again, I want to use the same pronumeral to define each variable. So now I know that the length times the width is 108. That's what the area of a rectangle is, length times width. So I get 3x squared equals 108. So to solve this, I need to undo what's been done to x in the opposite order to BIDMAS. So I'm going to divide each side by 3 and then square root. Now, when we're looking at the answer to this, it obviously has to be positive. X is the width, it can't be negative. So I've just, again, found the width. It is 6 centimeters, so the length is 18 centimeters, triple that. All right, and we're done. They're the dimensions of the rectangle. Width 6 centimeters, length 18 centimeters. All right, thank you so much for tuning into this video. This has been the luckiest maths teacher in the world. Have a great day.